Mutatus. Episode 1. Changes. It's been over 100 years since humanity began to change. Some called it mutation, others called it evolution. Whatever it was called, it brought about some major changes. The physical changes were the most evident. Babies were born with silver hair, which was one of the two constants with all of them. The other differences were that many had heightened senses. Some were stronger than others, and some had denser skin. The next constant came when they matured physically. Their iris's color changed from whatever it was before to a deep purple color. No one can explain why that is. The change doesn't affect the way they see, or affect their eyes in any way other than how they look. And that was the extent of the changes. The physical ones, at least. See, when this whole phenomenon started, the internet took to calling these people violet eyes, or just violets, in reference to their eyes if that was too subtle for you. At first, these people were persecuted and looked down on by the population, but as the years went on, a new change became evident. The birth rate for these people, scientifically called Homo mutatus, grew, while the birth rate for other people, Homo sapien, decreased. Eventually, the violets became more prominent in society, becoming the norm. But I haven't gotten to the worst part about all of this. There's a reason why the name quietly changed from violet eyes to violent eyes. The tables quickly turned. Soon hate crimes began to appear about how people were being brutally attacked by the violets, and that at the end, the victim would look like they were attacked by an animal. Turned out there was another change in these people that wasn't as obvious. There was a change in their brain's chemistry that made them more prone to violent behavior or acts. The juices start flowing and they need something, or someone, to beat the shit out of. But never has there been an incident of a violet attacking another violet. Good thing some politicians passed a bill that pretty much made such acts punishable by death before they too were replaced. The year's 2225, and 90% of the world's population are violets. And, lucky me, I'm one of the 10% that are unchanged humans. My name is Adam Day, and my schedule is pretty much wake up, wash up, exit home, walk down the street while enduring the mocking and contemptuous stares of the violets who probably have a primal desire to bash my head in, enter my workplace, a well-known freelance tech store, and be greeted by my boss, Saren Finictivus. Day. Morning, Saren. How many times must I tell you is Mr. Finictivus? Well, we made it to the 80 times mark. Want to try and break 100? Saren was clearly not a fan of my jokes. Oh, and I forgot to mention that all violets' names are ridiculous. One example was a woman on TV who had such a stupid name that no one interviewing her pronounced it the same way twice, and she wasn't insulted by it at all. I'm pretty sure it couldn't be pronounced, since it only had one vowel, and that was on the end of the name, and it was a Y. Day, turn on the TV. I want to know what the news is reporting. Sure. I grabbed the remote and turned on the TV, ignoring the annoyed sounds coming from Saren's office. Usually the news was just another source of violet propaganda, which boils down to, violets are awesome, and anyone who isn't a violet is a mentally challenged Neanderthal that should be lynched immediately. But don't quote me on that. You know, the usual stuff you find on the news. This time, however, the reporter was in the middle of a story about a bombing that happened in Detroit. Apparently a bomb went off in the middle of a bank, and from the images they were showing, the bomb was big. Buildings that were right next to the bank were gone, while the buildings a couple of blocks away were decimated. The local law enforcement, firefighters, and emergency responders were doing their job of protecting the population, putting out fires, and helping the wounded. No word yet on how severe the damage truly is, or what, or who caused the explosion, but from these images we can see firsthand the damages for ourselves. The reporter went on with the story, and I would have listened more, except Saren was giving me the death glare, telling me that this peon had to go to work, which was fine. I was starting to get another headache anyway. I've had them before, but I'm starting to get them more frequently. I went to my desk to get some medication, and I heard Saren scoffing from his office. I keep forgetting how you people are so fragile, to get inconvenienced by such mundane things. Well, some of us don't have the good graces of just having purple eyes so we aren't instantly hated by everyone else. What was that? I just said it's a good thing I have some medication here when I need it. The truth about Saren is that he is considered a violet, but he doesn't have super strength or super speed or anything else. He is pretty much at the bottom of the food chain, seeing as people like me aren't even taken into consideration when the pecking order is brought up. Yep, I'm living the good life. The day went on as usual and all was well. Oh, wait. I forgot about the fact that 30 minutes later, a crowd of people ran screaming by our shop, terrified. Then a car went by our shop with the horn screaming as well. I wouldn't have paid that any mind if it weren't for the fact that the car went by our shop upside down, in midair. Either it was the medication doing too good of a job, or I just naturally lacked survival instincts, but I decided to venture out of the shop to see what the hell was going on. Saren wasn't going to stop me anytime soon, seeing as how he was using his office door as a defensive barrier. As I got outside, I looked down the street where people were running away from. All I saw was a guy. From his appearance, he was just a human guy. But there was definitely something wrong with this guy. What tipped me off wasn't the fact that this guy was in the middle of the street, with a manic grin and that 1,000-yard stare most maniacs have. Nah. It was the fact that this guy was in the middle of the street with a manic grin and the 1,000-yard stare, and he had about 10 or so cars floating above him. I was distracted by what I saw that I didn't really notice this guy was coming towards me, until he stopped about 2 feet away from me. Floating cars have a nasty habit of pulling my attention like that. Hello? Hey, don't kill me. I don't want to kill you, friend. I did not like how this guy called me friend, or anything else about him for that matter. I see you haven't awakened yet. You are still dreaming. Dreaming what? What are you on? It sleeps within you, dreaming of being awake. I can help wake it up. I can help you wake up. He brought his hand up, with his index finger pointed at me. I wanted to run. Believe me, I wanted to run like a bat out of hell. But as is the norm with these situations, my legs decided the best course of action would be to stay still and take my medicine. He brought his finger up to my forehead and poked it, a small static shock bringing me out of my fear-induced paralysis. How do you feel, friend? Still didn't like how he said friend. At first I felt nothing. Then I realized I felt nothing. Not even a headache. It was gone. I would have pondered on this for a while longer, if the most painful migraine didn't decide to fill the void left by the headache. My world went white with pain, and I guess I fell, because when my vision came back, I was on my back with Mr. Smiley looking down at me. I'm sorry that waking up hurts, but now you are reborn. You can now see the world anew. I really didn't like what this guy said. It was at that point my other favorite person, Saren, decided to make his grand entrance. What are you doing here, Day? Whatever it was is done, and you should be... Saren stopped mid-sentence after noticing Mr. Smiley, and Mr. Smiley's floating car collection. What? But that's... It can't... How are they... So, this one pretends to be a master. Mr. Smiley turned to Saren, his hi there neighbor attitude gone, with something that didn't bode well. You stay away from me, you freak! You animal! You are worse than an animal. Your whole kind are worse than the most base of animals. You go about spouting words of superiority when you have nothing to show for it, just to make yourself feel better. Stay back! I do not consider myself superior. The man raised his hand, and Saren was lifted off of the ground and into the air. His legs stuck together, while his arms spread out, as though he was being crucified. But I am better than your twisted existence. And then something happened. Saren's body went completely still, but I could see his skin ripple, like his muscles were moving. But judging from Saren's face, it wasn't an enjoyable experience. He was in agony, in pain, but the other guy's face was one of calm, of peace. After a few seconds, I heard a gurgling noise coming from Saren, and then his body shuddered and went still. This guy just killed someone, and from what I could see on his face, It wasn't the first time. He looked at me and gave me that same smile he had when he talked to me. You are now free, friend, and soon you will understand our gift and what we are to do with it. And that's when I ran.